Shocking developments at the helm of a family dynasty in South Carolina. Alec Murdaugh, now charged with murder. He's the prominent lawyer. He made a 911 call about the night about a year ago, and now he is the main suspect in the murder of his wife and also son. Both were found dead on their 1,700-acre estate. Correspondent Kelly Beeson joining us tonight with the very latest on this case and possible answers to what has been such a mystery for so many Americans who have been transfixed about this case and who did it.
Absolutely. And this is a tangled web, as you well know, Marnie, that continues to unfold before our eyes. The shooting death of Alex Murdaugh's wife and son, now the central focus. And according to the attorney we spoke with today, there were signs after the shooting that Alex may be the lead suspect in this case.
It's 4147 Moselle Road. I've been up to it now. It's bad.
That is audio of Alex Murdaugh telling a 911 operator last June that he had just found his wife, 52-year-old Margaret Murdaugh, and their younger son, 22-year-old Paul Murdaugh, brutally murdered at their remote hunting cabin.
Is he breathing at all?
No.
Their shooting deaths setting off a chain of investigations into Alex Murdaugh's finances, revealing charges of money laundering, a narcotics ring, a staged attempt on his life, and millions of dollars in stolen money.
So after the killings occurred, there was no warning by police to the community to look out for a suspect, and that was unusual. So they were probably looking at Alex right from the beginning and thinking he's the person and there's no threat to the community.
The indictments announced today say Murdaugh killed his wife with a rifle and his son with a shotgun. They released no details regarding how police linked him to the deaths after 13 months of investigation.
It's a good chance for the prosecution to test their case. It's essentially a mini trial. They get to examine the witnesses and they get to basically see how strong those witnesses testify under oath. So it's to their advantage to fully flush out the case.
Attorney Ari Shamulian says Murdaugh was already in custody, so there wasn't pressure to get him off the streets, adding that there are two critical pieces of evidence that will make it difficult for Alex Murdaugh to defend himself in court.
He's going to have a tough time explaining how the blood at that trajectory got on his shirt without him shooting, especially because he has an alibi that he was somewhere else visiting someone. And that's the second issue in the case. The fact that he claims he was visiting someone, yet on one of the victim's phones, there's audio recording with him being there, he's going to have a tough time explaining that alibi as well.
And prior to being indicted on dozens of charges, Alex Murdaugh was widely known attorney. He was also heir to a South Carolina legal dynasty, Marnie.
Wow, a complicated, very bizarre and sad case. Kelly, thank you. Let's talk more about this. I want to bring in criminal defense attorney Susan Williams tonight. Susan has been following this closely, as many of us have. Susan, good to see you. So Alec Murdaugh has always maintained his innocence, that he had nothing to do with his wife and son's death, but it sounds like prosecutors say we have evidence to prove otherwise.
Sounds that way, and the grand jury decided today they let their voices be heard, and sounds like the probable cause hoop of this has completely been bypassed by the grand jurors in South Carolina.
What do you make of the timing of this new evidence, right? We're 13 months later. They've had a lot of time. He was free for a very long time before he was indicted on those fraud charges. But only now are we hearing there's a couple pieces of new evidence that don't back up his story.
South Carolina Law Enforcement Division has been investigating this case for over a year, and I think that they've taken their time on this, and they've kept things close to the vest because it has been an ongoing investigation. And I think they know that South Carolina, all eyes are on South Carolina right now with this case, and they needed to get their T's crossed, their I's dotted, and button up this case before it went to the grand jury.
Based on what they have shared so far and its few details, do you believe that they've thought all along that he was behind this?
Well, I do think that they knew more, of course, than what they put out in statements, which certainly is a wise decision by South Carolina Law Enforcement Division when they gave a statement very shortly after the murders that no one in the community needed to worry about there being a danger to the community. So that told me, as a member of the community, always lived in South Carolina, that they must have some idea of some suspects, or they wouldn't come right out and say that in a public statement.
So let's go through these two key pieces of evidence and what more you can share, starting with the blood spatter at the crime scene. What can you glean from what they have released to the public about what they have?
I don't know that they've actually, I have heard different reports about the blood spatter. I haven't seen an actual, I'm not aware of the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division releasing information about that one particular piece of evidence. I'm not sure that exists.
Okay, how about
I just don't know.
Right, okay. How about the phone call, this cell phone that puts him at the scene, at least his voice at the scene of the crime before the murder happened?
Phone call, I have heard a statement possibly from, I think, perhaps his attorney. So that would be something that, his attorney, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not entirely sure if that is a piece of evidence that definitely even exists. I'm not sure. I know that there's been some talk about some phone calls that Mr. Murdaugh may have made leaving Moselle and going to his mother's house, and then on the way back to Moselle potentially, but I don't know for sure if that's true.
It seems as though, at least for his defense, it would be pretty easy to corroborate his story and talk to the people who he says he was with. What more do we know about what he has said he was doing that night and who he saw and who saw him?
My understanding from news reports, and assuming those news reports are correct, he was with his mother, who has some, perhaps some sort of dementia. I don't know for sure what it is, but perhaps she had a caretaker there with her. And other than that, I believe he spoke to a friend of his on the way there and on the way back, if news reports are correct.
Let me ask you this. His defense team said, "We are immediately filing a motion for a speedy trial, requesting the Attorney General turn over all evidence within 30 days as required by law, and we demand to have a trial within 60 days of receiving that evidence." What does that tell you about where things stand and their strategy?
Well, pretty much every case that I get hired on, I file a motion for discovery. I mean, that's normal, this discovery motion. And technically, we do expect something back within 30 days, but almost never does that actually happen. And there aren't really any consequences for that that I know of, other than, you can file a motion to compel evidence. And then speedy trial motion, that doesn't surprise me. I think it's a little bit confusing because some people think that we're going to have a trial in 60 days, and it does not happen that quickly. It's actually 60 days from the time that they receive all of the evidence. And so, the statement that his defense attorneys gave today, I thought was a statement that is from his legal team advocating for him.
Right, and maintaining his innocence. Before I let you go, Susan, there are so many layers to this case and to this story. The 2019 boat crash that was deadly, involving one of his sons, the death of the family's housekeeper. How do any of those cases, if at all, impact the proceedings now moving forward with these murder charges?
Here's how I see it. They're victims. There are victims that need answers. And if anything comes out of this that can give those family members some peace and solace from the justice system, then the justice system in South Carolina has worked.
It is a complicated and very sad story, tragic. Susan Williams, we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up next on